Hi, this is Edie with another edition of Table for One with Edie Smith here in the kitchen at Millrace Center. And today we're going to make a holiday favorite. Actually, it's everybody's favorite all year long, but we forget about these little gems, and that's meatballs. Meatballs are a wonderful addition as an hors d'oeuvre or even as a main dish. Perfect to make during these cold winter days. And it's a lot of fun if you are getting together with family right now. Maybe you have kids or grandkids. They can pitch in and help too. Now the recipe for the meatballs themselves is really basic. So today we're going to be making some different kinds. I've pre-made some meatballs just in the interest of time for us today, but I'm going to go ahead and make a batch of turkey meatballs to show you how this is done. So we're going to start with a pound of ground meat. Now this can be any kind of ground meat you prefer. So it can be hamburger, it can be ground turkey, it can even be ground shrimp and fish, white fish. So you're only limited by your imagination on what you can make meatballs out of. And I'll be talking a little bit about as I tell you about the type of meatballs I've made for you today. But just start putting on your inventiveness. I thought turkey would be fun. We're right in the middle of the holidays right now, and some of you probably have some turkey on hand. But ground turkey is readily available at any grocery store. So we're going to take a pound of ground turkey and we're going to put it in a mixing bowl. We're going to add 1 egg. And again, these proportions work no matter what protein you use. So 1 egg to 1 pound of meat. Now here's a little tip for you. If you break your egg and get a little eggshell into your batter here, stop and take the eggshell and just scoop it right out. You know you can't catch eggshell out of an egg with your fingers. It just doesn't work. You'll chase it around the bowl for days. But if you just touch it with your eggshell, it picks it right up and takes it right out of the bowl for you. So we're going to be adding our starch now, a binder. So the egg's going to hold it together, and the binder is going to be where you're going to be able to add some flavor and interest. In this case, we're staying with that Thanksgiving turkey theme with breadcrumbs. Now, maybe you don't have breadcrumbs at home, but guess what you might have? You might have some stuffing mix. If you have stuffing mix, you have breadcrumbs. Get one of these wonderful little mixers here, and you toss about 3/4 of a cup, because this will condense. 3/4 of a cup is going to condense down to a 1/2 cup of your starch. So the nice thing is it's got herbs in it. Stovetop stuffing, the stuffing like I use, any one of those is going to work great. So you're just going to put that 1/2 cup, and that measures out to a 1/2 cup there. So the proportions are 1 pound, 1 egg, and a 1/2 cup of your seasoning or your starch. So we're going to add some seasoning. Turkey doesn't have a whole lot of flavor on its own, so you need to boost the flavor profile a little bit with this. So I'm going to add a little bit of extra herbs. That wasn't herb stuffing that I was using, but it needs a little extra help because that egg and the turkey will absorb any flavor I put in here pretty well. So we're just going to add a little extra boost of flavor. This is just a nice herb mix, herbs de Provence. Just has got some different things, basil, sage, rosemary, marjoram, thyme. So it's a good overall mix. I also like to add chives to my meatballs. It adds a little oniony flavor, kind of boosts that flavor profile as well. You can do what you'd like. That's the fun of this. You can even have competitions with your friends. Have some folks over. Lay out some raw ingredients and let them make their meatballs and have fun. And then you can try all different varieties. Once you get your ingredients together in the bowl, then it's time to mush them together. And you just want to do this with your hand. I'm wearing gloves for sanitation purposes and also because it keeps it a little cleaner, but you don't have to do that. You can just use your hands in there. Wash them first, of course. These days and age, we've all learned about hand sanitation, and we keep very clean. But be sure you wash your hands before and after this process if you're not wearing gloves. And you're just going to mix that until the ingredients look fairly well incorporated. Don't overmix these because that's how you get a tough, dry meatball. All right, that's pretty good, and that's all it takes is just that little bit of mixing together. As long as that egg's incorporated through. Now we want to take a baking sheet. I bake my meatballs. It's the easiest way to do them, and it doesn't make a big fuss and mess in the kitchen. It also cuts down on that fried experience of having to add extra oil to fry them. You're just going to make about a bite-size little ball here, and each pound of meat makes about 20 meatballs. You can make them bigger if you'd like. If you're making them for soup, sometimes it's nice to make them smaller. And that's another nice thing about meatballs is they go into soups very nicely as well. I make an Italian wedding soup that is really good with little Italian sausage meatballs in it. Again, you can use ground Italian sausage. Now everybody thinks of meatballs, they think of the traditional meatball, which is a usually half pork, half beef, or sometimes all beef if you prefer, mixed in with herbs and spices of the garlic and Italian seasonings type, and then made with marinara sauce. That's, of course, a very good meatball. You also might think of meatballs and Swedish meatballs. Good old IKEA. I've been so disappointed because IKEA has had their restaurants closed for this entire year. So getting those wonderful Swedish meatballs has been very difficult. They sell them in the frozen food department, but it isn't the same experience as getting them in the middle of a store. That's another way you can use meatballs. And you can use that wonderful brown gravy, mushroom gravy. If you use turkey, you can make a chicken gravy for them. I'm going to be working on some sauces once I get these in the oven. And again, since each batch makes 20 meatballs, you can see why I've pre-made some of these, because I would be standing here rolling meatballs for you for an hour. But this is only going to take a few more minutes, and we'll get these right in the oven. 400 degrees for 20 minutes. And that's why this also is a great party food. If you have some friends over or relatives and you want to do something different, make a meatball buffet where everybody gets to make these wonderful, fun meatballs. And then you throw them in the oven. 20 minutes later, they're done. So for 20 minutes, you can play a game, you can enjoy cocktails, you can make other dishes, but this is so easy and so fun. It certainly is a great thing to remember for the holidays. And I know most all of us grew up eating meatballs on a regular basis because it was a great way to stretch a budget for a household, too. What else do you do with ground meat? You know, there's a lot of recipes, but it gets kind of boring after a while. So meatballs was fun. Well, this time I ended up with 21 meatballs. So I'm going to take and add a little bit. You can do this too if you see some that are a little smaller. You want them to be pretty uniform so that they cook about the same time. So just looking at my tray here, let's see which ones need a little help. That one needs a little help. You just add a little to it, roll it a little bit. Again, the less you manipulate meatballs, the more tender and delicious they are. The more you micromanage them, the tougher and drier they tend to be. All right. They smell delicious already because of the herbs and the seasonings in them. Do you see any that look bigger than the others? I'm looking and it looks like maybe that one needs a little help. Again, it's not a real exact science, but I know I want about 20 from each pound. See how quick and easy that was? It makes 20 meatballs that fast. And we've used all our batter. We're going to pop these in the oven, 400 degrees, 20 minutes. So let's get those in. And while those are cooking, we're going to make some sauces. That's the other fun part about meatballs, are the sauces that you can make with them. Now, again, as I mentioned earlier, the traditional sauce of marinara, if you go back to Table for One, Session 1, I taught you how to make a marinara out of canned tomatoes. You can go back and watch that and make a delightful marinara to go with beef meatballs if you prefer. Or you can have some fun with what you have on hand, what's in the kitchen. So for instance, we're making turkey meatballs. Well, what else might you have left over from the holidays? How about cranberry sauce? Jellied cranberry sauce. We're going to open this can and get that started on a delightful sauce for our stuffing and turkey meatballs. Now, it doesn't take a tremendous amount of sauce. Again, we're not trying to swim these in sauce. With marinara, if you're going to serve a pasta with it, you want to make more sauce, obviously, because it goes with the pasta. But for glazed meatballs, particularly for hors d'oeuvres, you want to keep the sauce a little bit lighter. You don't want to coat them and have them swimming in sauce because it makes it more difficult to serve and eat. So we're going to get the can of, and this is just a little baby can of Ocean Spray cranberry that I found at the dollar store. What a bargain. But right now, you're going to find lots of cranberry sauce in the grocery store. If you get a bigger can, I would probably only use about a half can unless you're making a large batch. That's another nice thing about meatballs. You can make as much as you'd like. So if you buy 3 pounds of beef, you can make meatballs, lay them on cookie sheets and put them in the freezer, and once they're frozen, toss them in a plastic bag. And then they're ready to go on any night where you don't feel like fussing and cooking. You've got meatballs like that. No need to buy frozen meatballs. You can make them. So if you come across a sale on any kind of ground meat, and today the possibilities are endless. There's ground bison in the grocery store. There's ground lamb. We love lamb at our house, so we make ground lamb meatballs. And in that case, we would use lamb, garlic, oregano, and we would probably put that with a yogurt and cucumber sauce, which would be a tzatziki. So there's any kind of different possibilities. You're limited only by your imagination. Now, to make this a true sauce, we're going to put the cranberries in there, and then we're going to add about a quarter of a cup of the Thai-inspired chili wing sauce. This comes in different varieties at your grocery store. I usually use the Heinz chili sauce, but they were out of it this week, so I just found a different kind. This has garlic, and I know that sounds strange. It has garlic, and it has a little bit of red pepper flake in it. So it's going to have just a tiny little bit of heat. If you don't like the heat, just use ketchup. Ketchup works just fine in this recipe. Again, just stirring in. I started with 2 tablespoons. I just added about 2 more to make a quarter of a cup. And that is ready to put on the heat. So we're going to set that over here and just gently warm that. I'm working on a commercial stove here, so I really have to keep an eye on it because it cooks. It's designed for large quantities and big heat. So we don't really need that. We just need to melt that cranberry sauce, get that warmed up, and then that's going to go on our turkey meatballs when they come out of the oven. But I told you I made some other meatballs for you, so let's see what we've done. I made some Mexican meatballs. These Mexican meatballs are made of a half mixture of ground pork and ground beef. I got that right at the grocery store. It was already pre-made for me. I can mix my own. I've done that before, bought ground pork and ground beef and mixed them. But this package was already made, so it was so handy. Now, what's in these meatballs? Well, I told you, let's use our imagination. Let's go to the cupboard. Everybody's got that bag of tortilla chips that has the crumbs in the bottom, the little itty bitty pieces that don't go in the dip anymore. They're practically worthless, right? No, they're not. They make fantastic stuffing for our meatballs. So again, you'd want to use your handy dandy little food processor here. Just put the chips right in there, give it a whirl, and it makes it nice and small. You don't want to use big chunks in these because it's more appetizing to get a smoother meatball and not have a big piece of the starch in there. So be sure when you are using this, and you can always use the old-fashioned way too. If you don't have the food grinder, you can always make your own crumbs anytime. This works great with potato chips too. Now the only caution is when you're using potato chips or tortilla chips, watch the salt content, because you are going to have a lot of salt from those little crumbs in the bottom. So we don't add extra salt to this particular batch. Most of the time, we do season and add extra salt to our recipes because we want him to have that nice seasoning throughout. This will take care of that salt for you. So that's one thing you can use. And again, potato chips work well, but we're going for a little Mexican flavor here. So I also have taco seasoning, little packet of taco seasoning. Now again, I'm being very judicious here. I just want a little flavor. I don't want these to be overly salty or overly seasoned. So I just used about a tablespoon, 1 scoop, 1 tablespoon of the taco seasoning mix for a whole pound of the meat. And again, the proportions were the same. 1 pound of meat, 1 egg, 1/2 cup of the tortilla chips, 1 tablespoon of the taco seasoning mix. And voila, that one's done. So what are we going to put on that? Well, you can use a cheese sauce. That would be phenomenal too. Or you can use good old enchilada sauce, canned enchilada sauce. It's amazing. You can also get green enchilada sauce at our favorite retailer, Aldi. Aldi has the red and the green. And I personally prefer the green, but if you're just easing into this, the red, and especially for the holidays, looks very festive. So again, we just open up this can. I made these yesterday, so they've been in the refrigerator. They're not warmed through yet, but they've been thoroughly cooked. I took them out about at 18 minutes so that they would have a couple of extra minutes to cook with the sauce on them. I just poured that enchilada sauce right on there, and into the oven it goes. Now that's just going to be in there for about 3 to 5 minutes. We're just going to watch for that sauce to get bubbly. You could sprinkle some cheese on there if you want to. And you can also incorporate cheese into your meatball mix. Good Italians put Parmesan into their Italian meatballs. You can put any kind of cheese into the Mexican cheese balls that you want, or Mexican meatballs, and add a little bit of shredded sharp cheese perhaps, or even some queso fresco. Just watch the salt content and adjust your other ingredients accordingly. You can also use unsalted tortilla chips, and that will really help you with that sodium content, and then you can salt to taste on those. So, what else did I make? These are going to be a big hit. This was the one that made my kitchen smell so good yesterday. These are meat of hamburger, just ground burger this time. I did not do the pork. And I mixed in our egg and some French's fried onions. Now remember, you've got these on hand because of the holiday, right? And again, at the bottom of the bag, there are going to be those little bits and pieces. Now I know some of you are drooling right now and going, where did she get that gigantic bag of those onion chips? Gordon Food Service. Gordon Food Service is a food supplier to the restaurant industry, and it's open to the public. You can walk right in and shop there, and I do recommend you go and walk through. You'll be amazed at what you can find and buy. They have great prices on things like pork loin. I think it's $1.89 a pound, and you can buy a whole pork loin. These run between $6 and $7 a bag, which is really a good value when you figure a little jar at the grocery store is running $3 or $4. So very good value. My husband loves these. I can't keep him out of them. So there's always those crumbs in the bottom because he likes to snack on them. I did the same thing. I kind of sorted them and made sure there weren't any big chips. You don't want that big bite of onion in here. So I made sure I got the little ones. I just sorted through them a bit. If you need to, you can put them in your food processor. And then I used 1 egg and our wonderful French's onions. Again, you're only limited by what your imagination is in your kitchen. So what kind of sauce are we going to put on this one? Well, why don't we go traditional? Let's go for that wonderful traditional grape jelly barbecue sauce. Now there's several recipes on the internet that you can look up if you'd like for different sauces. There's one that uses the ketchup base, which it uses the chili sauce, but I like the idea of using a little mustard, something different. Again, we're going to shake this up, add some variety. So we're going to use some grape jelly. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but anybody that's over about 50 years old, maybe even 40, grew up at holiday parties eating meatballs and grape jelly. Try it. You'll be amazed. And with the onion in the meatballs, it is amazing. Again, we're not trying to overcoat these. So about a half a jar of the grape jelly. And you can use any kind of jelly you have at home. Anything. You can use apricot preserves. You can use peach preserves. You can use orange marmalade. You can use whatever you'd like. Grape is just the traditional. And then we're going to add about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. I'm almost at the bottom of this jar. We go through a lot of this at my house. There we go. Just about a tablespoon. And you're going to stir that up and get that over here on the stove. And believe it or not, our other sauce is already bubbling away. So we need to give that a quick stir. I'm going to set that back off the heat just a little bit because it's already bubbling and I don't want it to scorch or burn. It doesn't need to reduce down any further. It just needs to melt. So that's what we're going to do with these. Once that sauce is hot, I'm going to pour it over these meatballs. I'll pop it in the oven just to warm them up a little bit right now. Everything's going swimmingly in there. The meatballs are cooking. But we're not done yet. We still have more to do. Now, I am serious. If you are in that wonderful age group of over 40, you probably remember these little gems. They're porcupine meatballs. Porcupine. I've told you this before in my cooking class. For some reason, in my house, we always have leftover rice. I tend to make rice in big batches. We eat a lot of it. So that leftover rice, if you go back probably to number 3 cooking class, I taught you how to make fried rice with leftover rice. Well, in this case, we're making porcupine meatballs. This is that pork and hamburger mixture again. And we took and put the rice in. Now, I put more rice in this than I did the other dry ingredients. And the reason why is because this particular type of meatball tends to be more of an entree style meatball, and it's a little heartier. So I used a cup of the rice to a pound of the meat. So a cup of the rice. The best way to do this is to use rice that is a day old, that you've already cooked and has been on hand. But it doesn't hurt if you just want to make some rice. Just make sure it's cooked through and rather dry before you mix it in with your other ingredients. Otherwise, it's really difficult to form the meatballs. They tend to spread out on you. So, the cup of rice, pound of the pork and hamburger mixture, and then we put I put some chives in here, I put some garlic in here, and of course our egg. Made those right up. So what sauce are we going to put on these? Well, this one we're getting real creative with. This sauce I'm going to make is going to be a mango sweet and sour. Now, I had looked at the grocery store for pineapple preserves. Sometimes you can find those. My store was out, so I picked up mango instead. Again, you're only limited by your imagination. You can use any kind of preserves, but if you're going with a theme, you want to kind of look at those flavor profiles and stick with something tropical. So we're going to take mango preserves, and we're going to scoop them into our pot here. Because these meatballs are a little bigger, and they have that rice, which is going to absorb some of this yummy sauce, I'm going to use a little more of the mango preserves. I'm going to use about 3/4 of a jar. Set that aside. I know my measurements are so scientific, aren't they? But that's the fun of cooking. It doesn't have to be exact. It doesn't have to be so precise. You can have fun with it. Now, we're also going to put a dash of soy sauce in here for seasoning. Just about, that looked like about a tablespoon. That's going to add some seasoning and some salt. And then we're going to add rice vinegar. Now, you can use, I have to peek behind me, make sure I'm not boiling over back here. You can use white vinegar. You can use rice vinegar. I would stay with the lighter vinegars for this particular recipe, but if all you have on hand at home is some apple cider vinegar, then use that, just dilute it a little bit because it's going to be very strong flavor in this profile. So just dilute it about half before you use it. So we're going to add about 1/4 cup of the rice wine vinegar. Perfect. So we've got sweet, we've got sour going on, we've got a little salty going on in there. Let's make this even more interesting. Let's put a little garlic. Again, we're going for a really tropical oriental punch here. I even brought some ginger with me today. Now, ginger is something that is kind of intimidating to work with if you haven't worked with it before. It's a very woody plant. It looks like this when you buy it at the grocery store. This is about 30 cents worth. So it's very affordable, very inexpensive. But this is wonderful to add to hot lemon and honey tea, to add to sauces, to add to anything that you want to have a little oriental flair to it. And all you do is you just break off one of the nubs and you peel it. It's very easy to peel with a knife. Very simple. And I actually did put some ginger in our meatballs as well. I chopped it up really fine, and I put that in the meatballs. I put some chopped garlic, too, some heavier garlic rather than the garlic powder in the meatballs. I need to check my stove real quick. I'll be right with you. But we can't let these things sit and not pay attention to them. We have to know what they're doing. Otherwise, we end up with scorched sauce, and we don't want that. That one's going well, too. Everything's swimming in sauces today. All right. We're going to break down this jelly a little bit, the mango preserves. Again, we've got vinegar, garlic. And it's starting to smell so good in here with the garlic and the ginger. Now, I'm going to teach you a little trick about ginger. When you peel these pieces, cut it into a chunk so you have an oval. And then you pick up the nearest can and you smash it. Don't have a can handy? Use the bottom of a skillet. Got to chase it around there. There it goes. The bottom of this jar is concave, So it's getting up in there. I need something that's got a flat bottom. But you can see how it worked with this. It breaks those fibers down, and then you can just mince it, and it distributes that flavor so that you don't get a big chunk of the ginger. The best way to do that was with the back of a skillet. I just didn't bring a skillet with me today. But that gets that really fine chop without a lot of work. And then you can go through it with a knife just to make sure that you've chopped up any big pieces, because ginger's lovely, but getting a big chunk of it isn't real pleasant. All right, that's about enough. You don't need a whole lot. You just want that flavor in there. So we're going to toss that in here. Oh, I think I want a little bit more. So let's see if I have some. That doesn't have a bottom. That's concave. Just smash it. Look at that. Smashes it right away. And then you just chop. I wish you could smell this right now, especially in the winter months. Ginger has such a healing quality. It definitely clears the sinuses, has such a good, healthy scent to it. Again, chopping up some ginger and steeping it in hot tea with honey in the wintertime, very healthful, very good for you. Get this one on. We're taking sauces off, we're putting them on, and that's all there is to it. That was so simple. Just some mango jelly, some vinegar, a little garlic, and a little ginger, a little soy sauce. So easy. You can do this with anything you have at home and start playing with it. When I was a small child, my father challenged all of us to learn how to make our own barbecue sauces. So we would learn by experimenting with what was in the kitchen on what makes a good barbecue sauce. That was a great lesson. Thanks, Dad. It really helped me through my whole life to learn that I can make these things. I don't have to buy store-bought. And when you do make it, you can put a little bit of that love in it for your family. You can put a little bit of that creativity, and you can challenge your family members and friends to really explore their creativity in the kitchen as well. All right, so these need to go in the oven to warm up for a minute while our sauce is cooking on those. So we have porcupine meatballs, Mexican meatballs. We have our ground beef and onion barbecue meatballs. And I'm going to check real quick and see how our turkey meatballs are doing. Almost done. I'm going to let those sit for just another minute while I check our sauces, but look, they're firm, they're browned, they're so easy to do this way. There's no reason in the world to have to get out a skillet and really fuss about making meatballs. Now that we have everything in the oven, now's the time we probably would pour a great big glass of wine, but it's about 11 o'clock in the morning here, so we won't do that on this show. But you can do what you'd like. You can go have a card game with some friends. You can make your side dishes. You can cook other things, or you can just relax for a few minutes. The kitchen is almost done. Now, I am going to add another element to this, a fresh element, because meatballs are very heavy. Meatballs are good and rich and delicious, especially with these sauces on it, but you really want to serve them with a fresh component, something to brighten the plate. So we're going to cut up a pineapple. Seems to go with what we're doing. And of course, the pineapple is a sign of hospitality and always has been throughout centuries. So nice to have at the table during the holidays or any time of the year you're having friends and family over. And you're just going to go around that pineapple and cut down to the first layer right underneath the eyes of the pineapple. Now, I know on YouTube there's some videos that show you pulling every eye off. That does not work. I tell you, half of what you see on YouTube is probably engineered. I guarantee you everything we're doing here is live and pretty much in one take. So I have to be very careful with this knife. Once you get the outside of your pineapple off, then you cut through the middle. Boy, this is a nice, ripe pineapple. I can cut the bottom off as well right now. Get those into our trash bowl down here. I've got a trash bowl under the table that you can't see full of all my garbage. It makes it so much easier to keep the kitchen clean when you have your garbage bowl handy. And of course, if you are real creative, you can actually put the top of your pineapple in a dish of water and sprout it and grow a pineapple plant. Now, in Indiana, that's probably not going to survive very long outside the house, but at least it's something fun to do and to show the kids how you can sprout fruits and vegetables from things we already have at home, from scraps that we use in the kitchen already. You can do that with avocado seeds. You can do that with celery, cutting the bottom off the celery and sticking that in soil will grow new celery. Likewise with romaine lettuce, you can do that. So there's lots of things you can do. Just giving these a quick stir so that they get smooth and constituted there. Perfect, perfect. Need to turn the heat up just a little bit under our mango sauce because we're getting to the end here. Everything's coming together beautifully. So with our pineapple, again, it's a little slippery, so you have to be cautious. We're going to take and cut that core out of the center. You may have a different way you cut pineapple at home, and that is great. This is just how I've always done it, and it gets the most pineapple for your enjoyment. Least amount of waste for me. Say, if you have better ways to do it, you can email me at travel@millracecenter.org. You can look at us on our website, millracecenter.org, or just type Millrace Center into a search engine, and we pop right up. We have all kinds of online classes and things for you to look at and do. Because we have been in COVID mode all year, we have gone into these productions, and there's concerts and TED Talks and cooking classes, all kinds of things online for you to enjoy. So if you are shut in, if you're not able to get out or just being extra cautious right now, you might think about looking at millracecenter.org for some entertainment and some education. There we go. Any little stray eyes that you see on your pineapple, you can cut off because those are tough. You don't want those in the mix. We're just going to cut some pineapple sticks, I think. I think that'll be nice to eat with our meatballs. And it's up to you how thick or thin you want them. You get to decide. A beautiful pineapple. So if you see pineapple at your store right now, they're in good condition. They're excellent. And it might remind us a little bit of the tropics that some of us are missing right now. Hello to my friends in Florida who have been emailing me all week telling me how nice it is down there. Thank you. I'm happy for you. I would love to join you, but this year we're not going to make it down south. But I know some of you have made that trek and are happily ensconced in your winter homes, and we're glad to hear it. We'll welcome you back in the spring. All right, so we have some lovely pineapple pieces. We should have our meatballs ready to go. Let's pull those out of the oven. Got to stay on top of these sauces. That is one thing you can't let go. You can microwave these as well, by the way. So if you don't want to use the stove top for that, you can microwave those. That will make that a little quicker process. I use a little whisk on our mango because the mustard needs to be incorporated a little bit, or the ginger needs to be incorporated just a little bit better. I didn't put mustard in that one. I put ginger. There we go. That's breaking that down. Once those jellies melt, they just make the smoothest, nicest sauces, and you'll see that in just a second. All right. These have been in for about 15 minutes. I did put the temperature up to 450. You can do that as well. So how do I know they're done? Well, there's a couple ways you can check. It depends on the meat. So with your beef and pork products, you're going to watch for any seepage or any runoff. They shouldn't have anything coming out of them that would indicate a juice escaping the crust on the outside. For turkey, you just want to feel them. If they're bouncy, and these are really bouncy, they're done. So super easy way to find that out. Now we just need to take these off the tray, and I'm going to put them in a serving bowl. Again, freezing these. You're going to get 20 meatballs out of each pound. So if you're living alone, or you maybe are just two of you, and you want to make meatballs, but you can't eat these all right away, you can certainly freeze half of them and have a delightful treat. They make great sandwiches. They go into soups. Throw them in some sauce and you have dinner. Again, if you don't sauce them ahead of time and you just season them, they're versatile. You can do anything you like with them. I know this is what we're actually doing at my house for Christmas this year. I've got some grandchildren that I have been in touch with and stayed in my bubble all this time. So they're going to come over. And my eldest granddaughter, who's 9 now, is going to help me this week make meatballs for our Christmas dinner spread. We'll have it all made ahead of time. Nobody has to stress. And we're going to have fun and a delicious dinner. And I'll bet you anything she'll be real proud of what she makes for her family. Now, there's something else that you can add to this feast of the senses. And you can really smell all the spices and seasonings I've been using in here. And that is that world famous favorite jalapeno. You can leave these out if you don't like the spice. I would recommend going very, very light with this. Again, you want that sweet and saucy. Oop, we've got some escapees here. We've got a gorgeous big jalapeno. And I'm just going to get some very, very little thin slices. I'm not even going to cut the whole jalapeno. I'm just going to cut a couple of slices off here. Very, very thin. I like to use the green jalapeno. I like the flavor better than the pickled jalapeno, but that's up to you and what you have on hand. Again, we've got vinegar in our sauce, so that's not going to hurt anything if the jalapenos are, in fact, see, just a little bit for a little bitty bite and a little bit of flavor. And jalapenos this year have been very hot. I don't know what's going on with our growing season this year, but I'm just dicing those up. Sliced them real thin, diced them up real small. And those are going to go right into our sweet and sour mango sauce. Look at that. Gorgeous, melty, delicious. Gonna sprinkle those in there. Just a little bit of heat and sweet. And we're just going to spoon that right over the top of these turkey meatballs. These are the turkey with stuffing. And I just really screwed that up, didn't I? But you know what? It doesn't matter. I told you I was going to put this on our, this sauce was going to go on our porcupine balls. It was, but you know what? It doesn't matter, because what we're going to do is turn these turkey meatballs now into sweet and sour. It didn't matter one bit. So what we're going to do now is pull out our other meatballs and get those all sauced up. And that's kind of the fun of doing this kind of cooking, is you can be flexible, you can be creative. It doesn't really matter what the grandchildren choose to do. It's not going to make anything taste terrible. As a matter of fact, with our porcupine meatballs, putting the cranberry sauce on those is going to be very reminiscent of IKEA's meatballs. Because IKEA meatballs have a creamy brown sauce on them, but they serve them with berries, lingonberries. So, this is the cranberry sauce. We're going to put that on our porcupine meatballs. Again, a little twist. It isn't going to hurt a thing. All you could even leave the sauces out in dishes, serve the meatballs, and have people sauce them themselves and try different combinations. That would be a lot of fun too. And then we have one more. I always cut a jalapeno using gloves. You always want to use plastic gloves whenever you cut a jalapeno. This is the barbecue sauce. This is the barbecue sauce made with grape jelly and a little bit of Dijon mustard. Again, you can make crudité trays with some fresh sliced pepper, your fruit. You can serve this, serve meatballs with fresh items. You might sprinkle a little bit of cheese on your Mexican meatballs, give them a little bit of and you want to give everything a little bit of a toss, get those sauces incorporated. And again, porcupine meatballs go great with a gravy. They go great with the lingonberry or cranberry sauce. We've got the barbecue. This is going to be, I think, my husband's favorite because it has those onion chips in it, and it's got that wonderful Western flavor with barbecue sauce and onions. We've got our Mexican style here, and that's got that great enchilada sauce on it. These have all been warmed up, and those were seasoned with taco seasoning and tortilla chips in them. So they've got that variety in them as well. And then, of course, we have our little poor orphan here that got the wrong sauce on it. But again, it's okay. It doesn't hurt a thing. It's got a sweet and sour sauce on a turkey meatball. So very, very delicious there. Okay. Whoop. So that's it. That's meatballs for the holidays or for any time. When you feel like being creative in the kitchen, go inside your pantry, go in the cupboard, see what you have, and see if you can't come up with some fun meatball recipes for you and your families to enjoy as well. I wish you a very, very happy holiday and a blessed 2021 for all of us. This is Edie with Table for One. Take care.